And welcome to the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Pat, good afternoon.
What a month we have seen, Jason. You did a
incredible
great story last night.
Yeah,
you did a great story on it, and it's just been it's a wonderful time to be a Wildcat fan, that's for sure.
Football, basketball, women's basketball, triathlon, volleyball, even making the NCAA tournament. They got the Casino del Sol rights naming. Pat, we're going to go to the Huddle poll question first, just to get that out there so that our viewers can vote. And then I want to give you deserve credit for something. So I want to give you credit for it. Okay. Okay. Let's start with the Huddle poll question. Which bowl would you like to see Arizona in? So assuming our audience is as Arizona Wildcat fans, I want to know, what bowl would you like to see Arizona in? And there's three really likely bowls. I'd be very surprised if they weren't in either of those three. That would be the LA Bowl hosted by Gronk. It would be the Las Vegas Bowl on New Year's Eve, or it would be the Holiday Bowl, San Diego, January 2nd. We're going to put that up on the screen, and our viewers can go to the KGUN9X account and vote. We'll have the results later in the show. Pat, usually you and I vote differently, but I think for this, we both voted for the Holiday Bowl. Am I correct?
Yeah, only because I think if you look at the grand scheme of things, that's the more higher up the rung of the ladder of importance in bowl games. It happens to be going to be played on January 2nd, a Friday. It'll kind of be a marquee matchup. It'll get its own time slot. Most all of the other bowl games will have been played, and then they'll start they'll continue with the college football playoff, those games. So I think it really kind of puts itself as the bowl you'd like to go to if you're not one of those Big 12 teams that gets to go to the college football playoffs.
Well, I also like the story in that obviously they haven't been to the Holiday Bowl since the magical 1998 season, right? You got a little bit of a tie to that here with Brent Brennan. Now, I know he wasn't part of the 98 coaching staff. He was a graduate assistant in Hawaii, I believe, during that 98 season. But there's still kind of a little tie to that era with him. And as wonderful as the Alamo Bowl is, they were just there 2 years ago with a win. Yeah. I like to just kind of let that stay. I think the LA Bowl hosted by Gronk would be tons of fun, but they're a 9-win team, right? So because they're a 9-win team, I would like to see them in a more prestigious bowl. That leaves the Las Vegas Bowl, the Holiday Bowl. And I just kind of like the Holiday Bowl. I may be happy with the Las Vegas Bowl, but I just kind of like that Holiday Bowl, kind of feel on, like you said, January 2nd.
Yeah, and it's it's an easy, fairly easy drive for us in Tucson to get over there for Wildcat fans, or you can take a quick flight. But I really do think it fits more of what they've accomplished this year versus those other bowls that I think probably you'd be like, wait, what? We got 9 wins, chance at 10 wins, and you're going to go to that bowl. So I'm all in on that. I've seen lots of different, potential opponents. One of them, SMU. We talked about it on TV last night, and I think that would be a good matchup. But those are two teams. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but those are two teams on different trajectories because Arizona's going up and SMU seems to be going down. But they have similar records, and that would be an interesting matchup anyway.
And a big part of it is who plays in these bowl games. That changes now with some of the star players. But we'll find out Sunday who goes to what bowl, including the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl. But, Pat, before we go any further, you deserve a lot of credit. You really do. This team was 4-3 coming off the losses to BYU and Houston. And I said pretty vehemently, this is not a team that is like 93 when they were 3-3 and went on some big run. This is not the same situation. This team is not about to go on a big run. They've got glaring holes. And you disagreed. And here we are sitting here 5 weeks later. They're 9-3. Now, I don't think they've beaten a ton of great teams. I don't think this team is as good as the 23 team. We can get to that and have that fun debate, which I want to later here. But you beat who you play in front of you.
That's right.
They have won the 5 games. And I am shocked that we are sitting here and this football team is 9-3. Pleasantly so. I root very hard for the
Yeah,
Arizona.
yeah,
Pleasantly shocked.
obviously,
Yeah.
obviously I do too, and I'm trying to put myself back in that spot, and I don't think it was all just because I'm a Wildcat fan and I go to the games, and I really did look at it like, and kept having to defend myself against you at the time that, look, they could have and should have beaten BYU, they didn't. They could have and probably should have beaten Houston, and they didn't. But they responded after the BYU loss with a good game against Houston. They lost, but I said it's all about how you respond. And yes, we knew Colorado wasn't going to be very good, but they went to Colorado and they whooped them. And then they came home and they took care of business against Kansas by having a dominant second half. And then that kind of set the stage for what they were going to be. They were going to be a second half team, both offensively and defensively. And it played out that way in all the rest of the games. Kansas was that way. Cincinnati was that way. Baylor was that way. ASU clearly was that way. They just seem to get better as games go on. And that coaching staff, you could see it even in those losses. They made great adjustments. It didn't work out against BYU. They couldn't hold off BYU, but they made great second half adjustments. And I think that's what sticks out to me is this is a second half team because their coaching staff can make adjustments.
They've played fantastic second half defense.
They do.
I think there's some stat where they've given up 36 points the whole fourth quarter of all the games combined this year. I mean, when you think about a defense that is a second half defense, you think about like a dominating defense. And, I just didn't think they had the personnel on this defense to be a dominating defense. But, I mean, you take a look at some of the plays that guys make, like Traden Stukes and that incredible interception, and Dalton Johnson had one too. Got a little lucky with a bad snap there with ASU. But either way, they forced 5 turnovers. And the cohesiveness that this team is playing with is just I do think they're punching above their weight a little bit, but I don't mean that as in a derogatory way. I mean that is complimentary to the coaching staff. There's a reason why Danny Gonzalez, the defensive coordinator, is up for the Broyles Award, which is the best assistant coach in the country.
Well, and I think we can talk about it, and we will talk about it. Are there any bona fide, first, second round draft choices on this team, especially in defense? Probably not.
Very interesting to see.
There are some good defenders on this team that probably, Traden Stukes, that play alone is going to get him a lot of looks when it comes to NFL draft time. But what you have to do is you have to take a unit. And first and foremost, you have to get them to believe, and they believe. I talked to Chuck Cecil on Sunday, ran into him, and Chuck Cecil said they bought in. This defensive unit bought in. And if you buy, I know a lot of time you hear that talk and you go, well, what does that really mean? And I know red line isn't your favorite topic, but red line is just what they use. That's the buy-in. If you buy in, you believe in this red line and you try to attain
that's
this
their
red
measuring
line.
stick.
Yeah. And so
their KPIs, their key performance indicators.
Yes. And what they did was they believed in the coaching staff, and they started believing in with each other. They bought in and they believed, and they became, you say punch above the weight. They probably became better than each individual piece by itself. But when you form all these 11 guys, or whichever 11 guys are on the field defensively, they over exceed any expectations that you'd have. The amount of turnovers that they were able to get, the takeaways, Jason, is mind-boggling. That, and it all comes with the sword, the cactus sword, with ball after ball after ball. I mean, can you remember a time where you would have thought you'd have that many footballs deflated on a sword in an ASU game? I wouldn't. I mean, that was the key to the game. They just shut down ASU. I know they didn't have their starting. Sun Devil fans are going to remind us about that, until next year's game. But the bottom line is, as you said, you play who's in front of you, and they dominated that team in the second half.
Maybe think a little bit of the players who left the last couple of years, and did they make the right choice by leaving, right? Because we kind of thought, hey, without a Gunnar Maldonado, who was the defensive MVP of the Alamo Bowl, without a Jacob Manu, who felt like the heart and soul of the defense, right? Without little Jonah, who's not little guy, the running back, without Prysock, that big stud defensive back, that this wasn't going to be any type of defense. It'd be a defense with holes in it. It's been anything but. This defense, statistically, I think is a little bit better than. I don't think this team is better than the 2023 team. But if you want to argue the other way, you look at some of the stats on defense, and you can, Pat.
I think that a lot of that has to do with Danny Gonzalez. I think a lot of it has to do with the guys that did stay or did choose to come here. You look at Traden Stukes, Genesis Smith, Dalton Johnson, like those guys make plays, Jason. They make plays. Whether they can play at the next level, that's not for us to decide.
Right.
They'll either get the chance or they won't, but they can make plays at this level. And then you mentioned running backs, Mahdi, he's a player too. They found some guys, they found some guys. They play to those, they know how to play to those individual players' strengths and put them in, it's that old adage, you put them in position to succeed. And they've done that. I get what you're saying. This 9-3 is not the same as 2 years ago, 9-3. But I went back and looked at some of those teams they beat 2 years ago. It wasn't murderer's row of strong opponents then either. They weren't, ASU wasn't where ASU is now.
No, and you can make a case. It was a very short. I've never said this before, but that was a very short-handed Oklahoma team in the Alamo Bowl.
Very much so. We'd actually talked about that before, that you start a freshman quarterback who had, how many picks did he have? Like 4 picks in that game.
Yeah.
Oklahoma lost that game as much as Arizona won that Alamo Bowl.
The kicking game is still an issue. It seems as though Brent Brennan's strategy for getting the kicking game back on track, or on track to begin with, is just to show a ton of confidence in Michael Salgado Medina and hope that it just works itself out. I don't know what else you're going to do. I would have figured by now you would have put Ian Wagner in, and that which wouldn't necessarily mean the end of Salgado Medina's career. He's still got a couple years left.
I don't think you do that.
But I would have thought he would have made a little move, because he actually mentioned it early in the season. He's like, yeah, so Salgado Medina's our kicker, but he's got to have to produce. Well, he hasn't really.
And he has at times. It's the inconsistency that gets you. He missed one on his own. The block, to me, Jason, the first time that happened, that's like, shame on you. And then the second time, that's shame on me. Like, why are they not fixing that? The guy coming from the left side unblocked, who dives in and blocks the kick, how does that get, unscouted each time? Because clearly ASU scouted that and knew exactly what to do to block that kick. You've got to shore up the special. To me, we saw the offense be pretty good all year, pretty consistent all year long, maybe minus the Iowa State game. They've been pretty good all year long. The defense got so much better by about the time the BYU came around, and have consistently gotten better. I don't see the special teams getting any better right now. And that's the one frustration that I have is the inability to do a simple thing like block on a field goal. I don't get it. That doesn't happen. You can go weeks without seeing that happen in college football, but we've seen it happen twice in the last few weeks for Arizona.
Yeah, they need to get that taken care of. The other thing that I've noticed the last few games is Fafita has really found a rhythm with Chris Hudson, the wide receiver. They really have good chemistry, and I know he doesn't want to look for anybody, and he doesn't, but that's the guy who, to me, the vibe is, we need a first down. You look at me, I'm going to get open. I'm going to make the catch. I feel that kind of chemistry with Chris Hudson, who they have somebody to go get that first down when they really need it.
Well, and that's because he has the ability that a lot of receivers on all over college football do not, and that's the ability to get open. And he gets open. There's hardly a time when he's not open. Sometimes the pass may not be there. Sometimes he gets pressured and he doesn't get a chance to get the ball to him. But when he has the opportunity, 7 catches, 95 yards. I mean,
he's done it for a few weeks now. It wasn't 1 week.
Yep. Right. It's been like 3 or 4 weeks where it's been right at or over 100 yards for Hudson. I think that's terrific. And what more can you ask for? This was a game where you needed enough offense, but Arizona State wasn't going to give up huge chunks. It wasn't going to be one of those where you just rip off a 40-yard run and score a touchdown. Arizona State's good enough to not let that happen. Let's not forget, as up and down as Arizona State's been this year, they're the only ones that beat Texas Tech in conference play. So they have the ability to slow down good offenses. They did it against Texas Tech, and they did it against Arizona to a point. But 23 points was more than enough when your defense didn't let up another point after that opening touchdown, or the early touchdown by ASU.
All right, we'll finish up with the football and get back to it in a little bit and finish up with it and the huddle poll question. But certainly we want to spend a few minutes here on the 7-0 second ranked Arizona basketball team. They've had kind of the week where they played a couple of non-conference opponents, and I think they look like they had a little bit too much stuffing and turkey and pecan pie in the beginning of that Norfolk State game. Hey, midway through the first half, Norfolk State had the lead, if I'm not mistaken, and then all of a sudden they just kept building and they were a bucket away from 100 points. The deal with the Auburn game is this. This is the marquee non-conference home game, right? The 3 wins have either been at neutral sites or on the road. UConn was on the road. UCLA was kind of on the road. It was in LA, but it was officially a neutral site. And the Vegas game against Florida, officially a neutral site. Maybe had a few more Arizona fans there for sure. But this is the marquee non-conference home game. So I do expect McHale to be sold out. I know there were a lot of empty seats against Norfolk State. I know the students were out. I know it's holiday weekend. Norfolk State's not going to pack them in. But I hope we get a sellout against Auburn for Saturday. This is the game where you'll see Terry Francona and some of the people who don't go to every single game.
Yeah, there's no question. And it's unfortunate that, Auburn has the coaching change right before the season starts, and they kind of looked a little off so far this season. But it's still Auburn. It's still one of the
Final Four last year,
one of the premier SEC teams in the country, and I still think it'll be a little bit of an electric atmosphere. It's unfortunate it's an 8:00 game because those can get a little. You can get a little blurry-eyed by the second half, Jason, in those games. But at the same time, I passed up doing a bunch of stuff on Saturday just so I could make sure that I could get to this game. And I think a lot of people will be that way. Those games over holiday weekends never work out well. And they got the win. That's all that mattered. What I love about the schedule, Jason, and I say I love it now because they've actually done well. They're 7-0. Had they not won those games, earlier in the season, the big matchups with UConn and Florida, I might be talking a different story. But it just seems to me like they got out of the gate with some real tough opponents, almost like think of it as a heavyweight boxing match. Usually you like a little bit of slow, they came out, make haymakers hitting against them, and they punched right back. Now in the middle rounds, you want to settle in a little bit. And that's what they did these last couple of weeks. Settle in and then have that punch when you get up against one of the big guys like Auburn, and that's what they'll do. They've had a couple of weeks of practices sprinkled in with 2 or 3 games. They weren't tough games, and now they're ready for another tough opponent.
Were you at the Norfolk State game by chance? You were out of town, right?
No, we were out of town. I gave my tickets to Big Alan Caith, so he took his son.
So it would where you sit, it would have been tough to see the Karchenkov injury because you would have seen him flying out of control, but you wouldn't have seen him lying on the court in pain, and it looked pretty bad. But Tommy Lloyd said after the game, rolled an ankle. Yeah, and I don't have I don't know for sure, but the vibe and the feeling I'm getting is this is not a very serious injury. They're hoping to have him back for Saturday's game. I'm not sure if they know if he'll be back or not. But they're hoping to have him back. So just hearing the hoping to have him back for Saturday, lets you know it's not serious, and you don't want to see that. He's doing really well. We're gonna have a little piece on him on 6:00 news tonight on KGUN 9.
Good.
It doesn't sound like it's going to be too serious for Karchenkov, who was really playing well on defensively in that game too. And obviously Norfolk State didn't have the height for Krivas, who could kind of do whatever he wanted to down low. Yep. And so it just kind of became, okay, let's find let's just throw it over Norfolk State and give it to the 7'2" guy where the Spartans had no answer for that.
I don't want to get overconfident, but I think that they're facing an Auburn team that, let's face it, isn't the Auburn we've seen the last few years or even played the last few years. So I think that they'll get tested. I think that Arizona should. I mean, we expect them to win this game, and with the McHale crowd hyped up, they will. The whole thing about rolling ankles, Jason, we've all done it. Even us, mediocre basketball players have done it, and they are so good at. that's one of those injuries now. They're so good at managing those injuries. If they say he can play Saturday, I'm sure he's going to be fine.
Okay, I'm looking here at Keyshawn Hall. So he is the Auburn player who they call him Keyshawn Big Guard Hall, and I believe he got hurt. And I'm trying to figure out where he is right now with the latest on
As
him.
far as if he's going to play or
Yeah,
not,
because they've got an injury of their own. Stephen, this is a week ago. Stephen Pearl says that Keyshawn Hall is still out. He's working with staff to return to 100%. So we got to see where that is because he's their best player,
right?
Transfer from Central Florida. So keep an eye on that with Keyshawn Hall. They said they weren't going to rush him back ahead of the Players Era tournament, but that was a week ago. So maybe he's coming back for he missed the Monday night's game against Oregon, which was on November 16th. So he might be playing. So that's just something to keep an eye on. He's their best player. He's kind of a big guard, kind of probably reminds me of Stanley Johnson from a couple years ago for Arizona. So he's the player to watch on Auburn for Saturday night. Okay. Let's circle back with our Huddle poll question. Go back to football here if we're able to bring it up. I know we had a little glitch before, but basically is which bowl do you think would you like to see the Arizona Wildcats go to? And so really there's three likely bowls. One which might be a little bit of the least likely is the LA Bowl hosted by Gronk. What's fun about that?
That would be fun. I mean, that would be fun.
Yeah, that'd been fun if they were if they had turned into this year, Pat, like the scrappy team that eked its way to 6 or 7 wins and the program's in the right direction. And now let's go have some fun with Gronk in LA. We did it this year and got to the bowl game, and maybe they did it with a big win over ASU. Then I'd feel like, let's go to the LA Bowl hosted by Gronk. But where they are now with 9 wins and a 5-game winning streak, I'm like, let's step it up a notch and go to the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. That's why I chose that. It looks like the majority of people feel that way too.
I would think so as well.
And if it didn't say Gronk there by LA Bowl, I think that number would be lower.
I think you're probably right. And the Vegas Bowl on New Year's Eve wouldn't be a bad. I mean, none of those are bad games, but the prestige factor, you have to take that into account. And even from
I think the Vegas Bowl is actually a step up now from the Holiday Bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
If it is, great, then maybe we should want to go there. But just in the name recognition alone, the Holiday Bowl seems to be more, where it's at, but I could be wrong. So
you got all the alums and I know you got all the alums in San Diego, and this football fan base has not traveled to even one championship drive, let alone out of town for these games, right? So my understanding is the Vegas Bowl has a little bit of the pecking order and is not going to choose Arizona, but the Holiday Bowl rep, I mean, there were several people who heard him in the press box at Arizona in Tempe who said, hey, we're picking the winner of this game. And so that's why I believe ASU looks like they're headed to the Sun Bowl in El Paso, which you wouldn't be excited for. I'd almost rather go to the LA Bowl hosted by Gronk than the Sun Bowl.
I agree with that as well. So I'm just looking at the conference standings, and this comes back to had they just, and I know it's fans say this, and I even hear broadcasters say to one, if you just want to beat BYU or you just want to beat,
I know what every team can say that.
I totally agree. But here you sit in the standings, and you're basically tied with Houston and ASU at 6-3, and you're like, okay, well, you have the tiebreaker over Arizona State, but you don't have the tiebreaker over Houston. So you're really sitting as the 5th best team in the Big 12. So you can understand why the Holiday Bowl is probably the game you're going to get, and maybe you just embrace it and say, okay.
Oh, I think it'd be great.
Yeah,
no, I'd be thrilled with that.
Yeah, I think I would be too. And again, there aren't many things happening on Friday, January 2nd, Jason, that you can kind of have the spotlight there a little bit. And it's, a lot of people are going to take, just like Christmas, they're going to take the 1st, the 2nd, 3rd, and they'll have the 3rd and the 4th off. So all of a sudden you got another 4-day weekend. Bam, you're sitting there in prime time. Everybody's watching you on Friday.
The LA Bowl is an ABC Bowl, and it's very rare to have Arizona play on ABC. So for our purposes, I wouldn't mind that. So that's actually, because of Gronk and because of ABC, that's actually my second choice on the list. But yeah, no. So that'd be a thrilling, and 10 wins is a feather in the cap.
That's a benchmark that you're always aiming at, and you're rarely, for an Arizona program, you really rarely reach. But think about this: it could be 10-win seasons, and 2 years apart. I mean, that's pretty much unheard of for Arizona football.
You want to weigh in on Lane Kiffin for a quick minute?
Oh, I am just, and it's not necessarily Lane Kiffin. Whatever, everybody deserves other chances, and and his story's well told, and he's at LSU. Good for him. I'm just so tired. To me, it's really reminding me of college athletics right now is so broken, Jason, and we've watched it happen because we, as a former college athlete who didn't get to have even $25 for my Sunday night meal when the dorms were closed, to now it's a free-for-all, and coaches are getting even more ridiculous contracts. They immediately jump to the next best situation they can. Meanwhile, the players are making ridiculous amounts of money, don't care about Arizona State. They don't care about Auburn, Alabama. They don't care about Michigan.
Well, I really tickled. I touched a nerve here.
It's a bad, painful nerve that you just poked.
This has more to do with a coach who's leaving an 11-win team and now is not going to be able to coach his team in the college football playoff.
That's his own
college
athletics. And if I'm Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin comes and I'm the athletic director and he goes, "Excuse me, I got the job at LSU, but I really want to coach these guys." Get out of my office. Get out of my office. You're gone.
Can't do that.
And
you're allowed. Trade secrets.
There's no question.
Information. Coaches, no way. The only sport where that is done is in NASCAR, but that's a different situation.
And that doesn't work. That's not good. It's just not good. It's not a good situation. And I just going to school announced that as the offense coordinator to coach the playoffs. Okay, Charlie Weiss will. I just look at it like, good luck, Lane Kiffin. I hope you lose every game. You won't, but I hope you do.
I'm going to be rooting for Ole Miss really hard. I
am too.
I can't wait to watch Ole Miss now in the college football playoff. I'm going to be rooting hard for them.
I get back to this. If I'm Lane Kiffin, why can't you turn Ole Miss into LSU? Ole Miss used to be really good in football.
Yeah, you just won 11 games. Look what's happened to the recent LSU coaches. If that's such a great job, if that's such a fertile ground for coaching, why did those other coaches get fired midway through the season?
That's what I'm saying. I think it's a mistake. I think that this mystique these coaches place on places like LSU, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, that's great. They are powers. Don't get me wrong, but you can build an Ole Miss.
It's the same conference.
Same conference, best conference in football. We all know that. You can build them into a national power. He already did it. Yeah. So why not say, I don't need LSU?
And you'll be loved there. Now you got to restart.
But now you just made.
They're going to expect you to win 11 games next year.
LSU. So good luck with that, Lane Kiffin. We'll get back to you in a few years, and if you go there and you win national championships, then I'll be the first one to say I was wrong. But I think he could have won a national championship at Ole Miss eventually, perhaps, or at least been in the talk every year. And now he goes to an LSU program that's not nearly as good as Ole Miss. So good luck.
All right. On that note, we're out of time here, so we're gonna leave it. Good stuff. We tell everybody in December we're not here every Tuesday. So if we're not here next Tuesday, we'll probably be the next. But yeah, great stuff. Great time for Arizona athletics. Can't wait to find out the bowl situation for U of A and the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl as well on Sunday. All right, this has been the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.